Coffee Break Collection 17, Health and Fitness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Excerpt from Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome Associated with Intravenous Drug Use, United States, 1988. By the Centers for Disease Control. In 1988, health departments of the 50 states and the District of Columbia reported 9,752 cases, and the U.S. territories reported 995 cases of acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, AIDS, in intravenous drug users, IVDUs, their sex partners, and children born to mothers who were IVDUs or sex partners of IVDUs. These IVDU-associated AIDS cases represented 33.3% of the 32,311 AIDS cases reported in 1988 and included 5,789 53.9% male heterosexual IVDUs, 1,742 16.2% female IVDUs, 2,055 19.1% male homosexual bisexual IVDUs, 227 2.1% men whose heterosexual partners were IVDUs, 620 5.8% women whose heterosexual partners were IVDUs, 231 2.1% children whose mothers were IVDUs, and 83 0.8% children whose mothers were sex partners of IVDUs. The 847 persons who were heterosexual partners of IVDUs accounted for 55% of the total 1,541 cases associated with presumed heterosexual transmission of human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. 379, 54.6% of the 694 other such cases occurred in persons born in countries where heterosexual contact is the predominant mode of HIV transmission. The 314 children whose mothers were IVDUs or sex partners of IVDUs accounted for 70.2% of the 447 cases associated with perinatal HIV transmission reported in 1988. In 1988, 4.3 cases of IVDU-associated AIDS per 100,000 population were reported by the 50 states, District of Columbia, and U.S. territories combined. Rates for IVDU-associated AIDS varied widely by area. Rates in Puerto Rico, New Jersey, New York, and the District of Columbia were 10 for 100,000 population. In 22 states, rates were 1 for 100,000 population. Rates were higher in the Northeast Census region than in other regions, and 54.5% of IVDU-associated cases were reported in the Northeast, which represents 19.7% of the population of the United States and its territories. In 1988, IVDU-associated cases accounted for 50.7% of all AIDS cases reported for the Northeast, 23.5% for the South, 19.8% from the Midwest, and 15.8% from the West, excluding states and territories with less than 10 reported cases in 1988. 3 states and 1 territory had more cases in heterosexual IVDUs than in homosexual bisexual men who were not IVDUs. The rate of IVDU-associated AIDS continues to be higher for blacks and Hispanics than for whites, except for the West, where rates for whites and Hispanics were similar. This difference of race ethnicity was observed for all regions of the country and was greatest in the Northwest. IVDU-associated AIDS cases represented 16.3% of all AIDS cases in whites, 52.7% in blacks, 55.5% in Hispanics, 6.3% in Asians, Pacific Islanders, and 29% in American Indians, Alaskan Natives. Although homosexual bisexual male IVDUs represented approximately one-fifth of all IVDU-associated cases, this proportion varied widely by region of the country. Male homosexual bisexual IVDUs constituted 7.7% of IVDU-associated cases in the Northeast, 26.3% in the Midwest, 29.1% in the South, and 56.8% in the West. Similarities between homosexual bisexual male IVDUs and other men with AIDS varied by demographic and disease characteristics. End of excerpt from Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome Associated with Intravenous Drug Use, United States, 1988, by the Centers for Disease Control.